the hidden burden of emotional self-erasure, learning power by disappearing. At the core of emotional power lies a painful paradox. Many people learned power not by being seen, but by becoming unreadable, not by expressing needs, but by suppressing them, not by taking space, but by shrinking so others could breathe. This script explores the emotional self-erasure that once protected you, and now quietly governs your relationships, boundaries, and sense of worth. This is the emotional spine of everything that follows. You can feel it most clearly in quiet moments, late at night, when the world finally stops asking things from you, when there's no one to perform for, no one to impress, no one to emotionally manage. That's when the exhaustion hits. Not the tiredness of work, but the deeper fatigue of existing carefully. You learned very early that emotional safety didn't come from honesty. It came from control, from reading the room, from sensing shifts in tone before words were spoken, from knowing when to speak, and more importantly, when not to. You became emotionally intelligent before you were emotionally allowed. And here's the paradox. No one ever names the emotional strategies that once kept you safe are now the very ones draining your life force. You learned emotional power by disappearing, by being low maintenance, by not needing too much, by not rocking the boat. You became strong, but only in ways that never threatened anyone else. And now, as an adult, you might look calm, competent, even powerful. But inside, there's a quiet question that never leaves. If I stopped holding everything together, would I still be loved? This is not weakness. This is adaptation. And today, we're going to talk about the 3 laws of emotional power that were never taught to you, because teaching them would require the world to admit how much you were asked to sacrifice just to belong. To understand emotional power, we need to redefine it. Emotional power is not dominance, not charisma, not control over others. True emotional power is the capacity to remain internally anchored without abandoning yourself to maintain connection. Many people never learned this because their nervous systems were shaped in environments where self-abandonment was rewarded. Let's name what actually happened. 1. Emotional neglect. Schema emotional neglect doesn't require abuse. It requires absence. No one asking, "How do you feel?" No one teaching you that emotions are safe to express. No one modeling repair after conflict. The child learns, "My emotions are irrelevant or inconvenient," so they adapt by becoming easy. This forms an emotional neglect schema, a deep internal belief that your needs are excessive and your feelings should be managed privately. 2. Hypervigilance. When emotional attunement is missing, children become attunement machines. You learn to scan faces, read micro-expressions, predict emotional weather. This is hypervigilance, a nervous system locked in low-level alert, constantly monitoring for emotional shifts. It looks like emotional intelligence, but it's actually survival. 3. Avoidant or anxious avoidant attachment. If closeness felt unreliable or conditional, you learned to rely on yourself. You may crave intimacy, but feel suffocated once it arrives. This creates an avoidant or anxious avoidant attachment style. I want connection, but not at the cost of myself. Except, you were never taught how to connect without losing yourself. These patterns don't just shape relationships, they reshape the nervous system. Your default mode network, the brain system responsible for self-referential thought, becomes oriented around anticipation, self-monitoring, and restraint. You don't just feel emotions, you manage them, constantly. Carl Jung once wrote, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent. But there is another burden, quieter, heavier, the unlived emotional life of the child themselves. You paid for safety with authenticity. You paid for belonging with silence. You paid for peace with self-erasure. And the cost doesn't show up dramatically, it shows up subtly. You hesitate before expressing joy. Because joy makes you visible. You downplay hurt. Because pain feels like a burden. You struggle to rest. Because rest removes your usefulness. This is invisible grief. Grief for the version of you that never got to be spontaneous, messy, needy, fully alive. The core fear underneath it all is simple and devastating. If I fully show up, I will be too much or not enough. So you exist in the in-between, present but guarded, capable but disconnected, strong but tired. Even small moments carry weight. Receiving a compliment feels uncomfortable. Asking for help feels dangerous. Setting boundaries feels like betrayal. Not because you're broken, but because your system learned that love was conditional on restraint. These patterns don't disappear with age, they evolve. You might feel responsible for other people's emotions in relationships, overfunction at work while under-advocating for yourself, tie self-worth to usefulness, productivity, or emotional stability, struggle with boundaries, either too rigid or non-existent, suppress anger until it turns into exhaustion or resentment, feel disconnected from your own desires, preferences, or needs. They become adults who are praised for being strong, but never asked if they're okay. Let's be clear, these are coping mechanisms, not personality traits. You are not naturally distant. You are not bad at vulnerability. You are not emotionally cold. You learned emotional power through control, not expression. Unlearning begins with witnessing, not fixing, not shaming, not forcing openness. Witnessing means noticing. When you minimize your needs, when you default to silence instead of truth, when you self-abandon to maintain harmony, this awareness alone begins to loosen the pattern. Because emotional power doesn't come from domination. It comes from choice. Healing does not mean becoming louder or more expressive overnight. It means becoming safer inside yourself. 1. Inner child. Reparenting. You begin offering yourself what was missing. Permission to feel. Permission to need. Permission to rest. You speak to yourself the way no one did. 2. Shadow work. You reclaim the parts of you that were deemed too much. Anger, need, desire, softness. These are not flaws. They are life force. 3. Nervous system. Regulation, emotional power grows in safety. Breath work, somatic grounding. Slowing down without guilt. You teach your body that connection does not require vigilance. And perhaps the most radical shift, choosing softness over survival mode. Not all at once, not perfectly, but intentionally. As philosopher Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "Try to love the questions themselves. Live the questions now. You are not here to be fixed. You are here to become whole." If this resonated, not intellectually but emotionally, it means your system recognized itself. Share this with someone who learned power by disappearing. Subscribe if you want to continue this journey, slowly, honestly, deeply, because emotional power was never meant to cost you your soul, and you no longer need to vanish to belong.